It's going to be like your, how you take care of your body and how you treat yourself and the food you put in and the mindset you have. It's not going to be like this, I don't know, like Tetris is so old school. Wait, not Tetris. What's like the new Snapchat on your phone, right? Like that's not going to save you, and that's not going to make you like a better person at all. Sorry, it was a ramble, but yeah, that's kind of like why I got involved in the two, and that's kind of how I ended up, talking to Brian and Carrie about really implementing and being aware of like the body and the mind together. It's so important. Kids need to learn that from like a young age. So, are you taping?
Perfect.
So, I'm from a small village in Ontario, Canada, and it's actually called Shakespeare, Ontario, like the writer. So it's a village right now, I think about 1,000 people. And my parents bought a farm outside of Shakespeare, Ontario. So if you go about 1.25 miles outside of Shakespeare, you'll run across this farm just past the pond. And we don't even get our mail delivered there. So we have to go into Shakespeare to get our mail and then drive back home to open and read our mail. So it's like a really remote farm area. Yeah, it's it's interesting. It's an interesting area. It's actually a large German settlement from way back, and my parents had bought this farm for $50,000 that was built in 1864, and it was the courthouse of the area. And it was a really large, there's a large Amish community too right beside it. So, everyone thinks like small town, small mind, but it's actually really interesting because you grow up with like, I grew up with some Amish people who, were judging me for what I was wearing because I didn't dress like them and I didn't have the same thought process as them and so on. So it was pretty interesting, being in that realm of life, but I definitely had different opportunities from growing up in the country compared to the city. And my family's like largely to thank for that. For sure, without a doubt. Lots of places to run around and just be a kid and eat dirt and roll around in the dirt. And yeah, actually one of my main memories from that is I have a photo of 2 bales of hay and straw. Actually, they're like big round bales, like the big ones that you see the tractors roll up, and they're way taller than me. And I would jump to try to reach the next one. And my trainer used to joke about that, and he would say, "Oh, you were doing like plyometrics as a kid," but really I was just like having a good time and trying to like mess around a little bit. So yeah, that's like where I'm from. Shakespeare, Ontario, good spot. So my name is Shivas, and I'm introducing myself after I told you where I was from because I totally forgot to introduce myself. So here I am, I'm Anne. So, as I said before, I grew up on a farm, Shakespeare, Ontario. Everyone has to Google map that because people think I make up the name of the town, and it's not true. It's outside of a bigger town called Stratford, Ontario, which is home to the Stratford Festival Theatre and Justin Bieber. Everyone knows our town because of Justin Bieber, which is cool because he's an artsy guy and he's done well for himself, so that's awesome. I definitely grew up on a farm, so it was a little bit more secluded than being in the city, but I also had a great city life, small city life, because you can think of like New York as a city. but Stratford's really like 35,000 people, which I call the city. So my perception of that's interesting. But my aunt and uncle were a huge part of my life, you know, really helping me experience different areas. They would take us on road trips. We'd go to Blue Jays baseball games. And, you know, I remember 1992 World Series. I'm sitting, when the Blue Jays won the World Series that year, my uncle had bullpen tickets, not to the World Series, but in that year, and they did so well. And there was a guy named Pat Borders, and I just bugged him. Poor guy. I bugged him for hours and hours and hours for a ball. And, you know, at the end of the game, he like threw me a ball, and I was like, yes, you know, like, thanks, Pat Borders, you know, and he's just like, oh, this girl's so annoying. And I was in grade 3, and, you know, at that time, I was, you know, watching these athletes perform and do their thing and being really passionate about it. And obviously, you know, I would have material on the farm to play with, and my parents just kind of gave me like different balls and materials to play with. And my mom was a school teacher just kind of down the road, so naturally she'd put my brother and I in the gymnasium to kind of get rid of us for a little bit. So she's kind of like, I have work to do, go play, go do your thing, like wear off all your energy kind of thing. And my dad was a really hardworking man, and he really tended to the farm and made it something absolutely beautiful. Both of them really, they took this farm from $50,000 from buying it. It had holes in the roof. Growing up as a kid, I can remember it getting so cold in the winter that the toilet bowl would freeze because we didn't have proper heating. So you had to go to the bathroom outside in like, you know, minus 30 degrees Celsius, minus 22 Fahrenheit. And it's like, you know, your bum's frozen. So you go quick, like you got to make the decision to go. And so it was quite the experience. And I think really through all those little, you know, hiccups on the way come like the lessons of really family unity. And it was all about more hands makes less work. And, you know, my grandma was out on the farm helping us with, you know, the vegetables in the summer, and we'd freeze them over the winter. And my parents weren't, you know, overly wealthy, but they really provided for us, and they really cultivated our land and really used what we had to you know, help my brother and I. And my dad at some point, he's a very artistic, hardworking man, and he took the old stones from my grandmother's farm at the bottom of the barn, and he decided to make this stone wall like right across the property that was absolutely beautiful. It kind of separated this like large hill going up to the barn from our house. So at the bottom there was our house, and at the top there was, you know, the chicken farm and so on. And I remember him planting a couple flat rocks in there, and that's when I started to, you know, I would just kick a soccer ball against them. And I at first, you know, I deflated a ball because I would hit like a sharp rock, and you learn from that. And I'm like, oh, there's a flat rock, so I'll try to hit that one. And it became a game, and I kind of got obsessed with it. And over and over again, I'd hit this flat rock, and the rocks on the house were flatter, but I kind of got in trouble when I would, you know, try to kick at the house because there were windows. So I always got, you know, pushed back to the rocks, and just behind that were a set of 6 trees, and they were just old, beautiful trees, but they were all lined up like little cones. And I would, you know, do my dribbling techniques in and out of them, and then I'd, you know, do it with one foot and do it with the other foot, and became like this ultimate like course for me to do my kicks against the wall, take the ball, go through all the trees, and go back and do it again. So it became like all these little games that I would play with myself on the farm, because I mean, you don't really have the luxury of going out with your friends at that point. So it was really interesting. You know, after after I was done my chores for the day, this is kind of what I would do. And you know, I kind of joke that my dad really taught me how to like build my muscle groups, because you know, you're shoveling shit all day, because we worked on a chicken farm, and you pick up dead chickens, and you have to clean the barn of 17,000 chickens, so you can kind of picture what that smell would be like, and you know how much effort it would be. So it was a really interesting place to grow up, and my parents, I would say, really had us like on the strict side of things, and they wanted us to accomplish things, and it was always about, you know, I wanted to commit to a sport for the summer, and my mom would be like, okay, if you're if you want to play soccer this summer, you have to commit for the whole summer. So that was something that always stuck with me. I'm like, okay, so I'm doing soccer this summer, I'm going to commit to it. And I remember the summer that I did it, I was like, oh, I like this. Like, you know, dance isn't really my thing, but I'll go into soccer. And soccer actually never stopped. You know, I tried a bunch of other sports along the way. Was definitely a multi-sport athlete throughout high school. I had some great influences through high school. But soccer always stuck for whatever reason. I think it was because I found it easy and it was so fun. And, you know, at the end of the day, I was just in my own little bubble, doing my own little game at home that I described before. So that was kind of, you know, my lifestyle with my family. And they were always very supportive of me, you know, being outside in the rain, playing soccer, and they're like, oh, Anne's out there again, you know? But it was kind of just like a thing. I brought my ball and everyone just kind of accepted it, and they really supported me, and sports was definitely a huge, huge aspect of my family, without a doubt. So growing up, I was fortunate enough to have two workhorses as parents, and they definitely taught me the power of hard work. And it's funny because all my friends and family members know me as like the hard worker. Like I was like the definition of that. And my brother too, you know, we really had that instilled in us. So my first job was shoveling poo as a kid. Growing up on a farm, that's what you do. You know, all hands on deck there. And then my dad, you know, really kind of sprung out, and he ended up buying a Dairy Queen at some point, which is just like, it actually shocked me at the time when he bought it. So he bought it when I was about in grade 6. And of course he employed my brother and I. So I was in there, you know, answering the phone, giving people their ice cream, decorating cakes. Like I had so many jobs there, and it was really cool because it gave me a lot of responsibility, but it also gave me the education of how to give people good customer service. Like, you know, surprisingly people get angry about their ice cream. I don't understand that, it's ice cream, but you know, they get upset about it, and you have to learn how to deal with that conflict and you know, kind of smile and nod sometimes and maybe suck it up a little bit. But that was a really, really cool job, and mindfully also I got to eat like all the ice cream I wanted, so how awesome is that? I also had a job working for the city of Stratford, which was interesting because I had a really good teacher there. We had to plant all the flowers for the summer. It was really known for their flower beds and being very beautiful, nature-like city. So, you know, we had a boss named Phaedra, and I actually got to work with my best friend all summer, which is absolutely amazing because not many people get to do that. So we'd be cruising through town and with our wheelbarrow and all of our tools in the wheelbarrow and cleaning up these flower beds and taking care of the flowers. And that to me was so amazing because I got to learn so much about different flower types and how to take care of them. And I think I killed a few things that I shouldn't have killed and pulled out some things that I shouldn't have pulled out. But thankfully our manager was super patient with us, and she was just like, oh, come on guys. But she was great, and she was such a good leader in that regards. And, you know, all throughout university, I really came home and did the Dairy Queen and city thing because it was flexible around, you know, my passion, which was sport at the time. And a lot of people said I was always a really good teacher, and I think, you know, instead of really finding my own way after university, I just went into teaching because everyone told me I was good at it. So I became a phys ed teacher for a few years at a private school, and that's how I ended up in Montreal. And I think I just, you know, outgrew my time there, and I couldn't give what I wanted to at the school anymore. And I kind of pursued other avenues. I started going to osteopathy school while I was teaching and finished that degree as well. So here I was, you know, with like my kinesiology degree, my teaching degree, and then my osteo degree. And I started treating people for 2 years in Montreal and created this really successful business that, again, I outgrew, and I had to, you know, hire some employees. And that's currently where I am, actually. I'm tending to them, and I'm growing my employees and growing my business, which is fantastic, and I absolutely love it. But along the way, I had some misfortunes, you know, with my mindset around surgeries and sports, and I was feeling really stuck. And I just really got put over into Brian and Carrie, and I found their mindset program, which naturally I think as a human and in my nature I would gear in towards mindset, but it's really cool because they focus in on, you know, being in touch with nature and so on. So it's almost like full circle for me, because now that I'm working with Brian and Carrie, I'm finding out that, you know, really the simple and consistent things and the small things and being in tune with yourself is so important. And when I was most in tune with myself is when I was enjoying my job at the Dairy Queen and working at the city, because I got to learn about like plants and growth and taking care of things and being responsible for things and making people happy, right? Because people are happy when they get ice cream. And so it's so funny how I've gone really full circle that way. And, you know, I continue to learn, but it's really honed in on me when I go back to, you know, revisit some of my clients in Montreal and they're dealing with pain. Sometimes I'm just like, get outside and go for a walk, get out of the city, go for a walk in nature and, you know, be alone with your thoughts, which is really fearful for some people and they'll suppress it. But again, like coming in full circle there, I was in such a good place when I was working for the city of Stratford. You know, it was a hard manual job, but it was so fun. And looking back on it, you know, I think really everyone should kind of get, you know, their hands in the dirt a little bit and learn about nature and be more in tune with kind of the planet they live on, rather than, you know, kind of going about their robotic job every day. So that's kind of where I sit at the moment. I'm in between, you know, I'm running my own business and I'm working quite heavily with the Brian and Carrie company to help build their mindset program and really launch it worldwide, especially into the education system, which I think kids can really benefit from.
Oh, it is nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
People get so caught up in the hustle and grind, and you know, my office is downtown Montreal, and it's like I see people that just like, I'm like, when was the last time you smiled? Because you're just wearing that frown, and when they come into the office because they've been in pain for years and years, oftentimes it, you know, yes, it comes in and it could be like a structural injury and so on, but it's like you've been holding on to this pain for, you know, maybe about your divorce or so on for years, and you're suppressing it and you're holding on to it, and the tension, you can just see your body like this all the time. And people just are so out of tune with their bodies and their minds, and it's like, you know, I wonder kind of like where our world's going that way. And like I'm wondering and I'm hoping that, you know, the next generation, or that I can provide to the next generation awareness that it's like, hey kids, like you really have to be in tune with yourself and your body and take care of this that you live in, and like the head and the body, because, you know, in the end, your app isn't going to get you down the road, right? And your app's not going to save you when you're 90 years old. It's going to be like your, you know, how you take care of your body, how you treat yourself, and the food you put in, and the mindset you have. It's not going to be like this, I don't know, like Tetris on your, Tetris is so old school. Wait, not Tetris. What's like the new Snapchat on your phone, right? Like it's just, it's not, that's not going to save you, and that's not going to make you like a better person at all. Sorry, it was a ramble, but yeah, that's kind of like why I got involved in the two, and that's kind of how I ended up, you know, talking to Brian and Carrie about really implementing and being aware of like the body and the mind together. It's so important. Kids need to learn that from like a young age. So, are you taping? So sports was, you know, my nickname in high school was Animal. Like ANNIMAL, right? And it's so funny because, you know, you get these nicknames and people kind of put you into a category, and then you feel like you have to live up to it. And I can remember in high school being really externally driven in sport. Like I'd always look, I guess, you know, for validation from people. and really want to know what they thought of me. And I'd always even want my parents' feedback, like, you think that was good? Was that a good game? Very well knowing that I played well, but it was really a validation factor. And as I grew kind of into myself and as a person, I realized that, sports like makes me feel free and it makes me feel calm, and that's where I'm most comfortable. And I can remember getting interviewed for our university newspaper when I was playing soccer, and I was like the most uncomfortable possible because I loved performing and I loved playing and I loved the aspect of the sport. You're on this soccer field and it's like a maze, and there's a wall here and you have to find the hole over there, and there's this player open, and you can kind of adjust and see how the play is going to unfold to score a goal, or you decide if you're going to make that run and be that open support player. Like, to me, it was just, it's such an amazing game and such an amazing sport, and overall, anyone worldwide can play this sport, which I find absolutely amazing. And it's so inclusive, and the person who can't afford shoes to the person who has $1 million can afford this sport. And I think that's why I stuck with it, because throughout my soccer career I just had the opportunity of meeting so many different cultures and seeing their point of view of soccer. At some point we went to play a game in Mexico City, and there were girls playing on that team who they were playing for the passion and so on, but I knew very well that they lived in a household with their aunts, uncles, cousins, moms and dads, and they all kind of shared rooms and so on. And that was okay for their lifestyle. Like, they liked that. They're very family-oriented people. But it was just so interesting to see, we grew up in like this soccer household and I'm really passionate about it, and this was really like in their blood. And to me, it's just amazing how that sport can be so instilled in someone, and it can, draw so much attention to it. It can draw so much emotion. You look on TV and you see this 5-year-old kid crying because his team lost, and his like face is painted and stuff like that. I have a picture in my mind of that from the Brazil World Cup when Brazil had lost, and it's just like, it's really a culture as well as a sport. And I really feel that sport can really bring a community together. And when you're sitting there on your team, you can choose to be the better player and create a better community, or you can choose to be, the complete jerk that doesn't want to work with your team. It really goes both ways. And I have to say, I've actually been both of those people at some point, depending on, where I was playing in my career and so on. But going through that sport alone, just as soccer, really helped me grow as a person and get to a point where I had never won a World Cup. I never even got the opportunity to go to a World Cup, and that's okay, because the medal would have been cool and stuff, but in the end I can really hone back and focus on the opportunity of who I've met along the way, the jerseys I've exchanged with people after a game. The smell on the soccer field just gives me like this mood that I'm so ready to play and I'm so ready to perform, and it's fantastic. And to me, nothing else can reach that level of satisfaction for me as a human. Like, I love what sports gives people, what it gives the world. And you can look at it in a negative way as this is corrupt, and they pay this team and this ref's paid and so on, but really break it down and watch a community of children play each other. It's fun for them. It brings them together. It helps them solve problems. If you really break down sports simply, it can be a really beautiful thing. And that's just into soccer. I ended up getting into rugby a little bit later on because I had a wonderful influence in high school, Mr. Robertson, who got me into rugby. And he started this rugby program for females. And I think I was 14 at the time. I was playing with like 18-year-old women, and when you're, I'm 5'3", and when I'm lined up against a girl who's, 6 feet tall and, 200 pounds, it can be pretty intimidating to know that you have to come into contact with that girl, and you might get creamed, and you might end up, with some scars and some bruises, and it's okay, because like the pain, it heals, and the rugby culture is just another world that I've learned to live in, and it's fantastic. Even in my lifestyle now, I play rugby and a little bit of soccer, and after the rugby culture, you go and have a beer with the other team. Like, you're off hitting each other for 80 minutes, and then you go off the field and you have a beer and all's good. So it's just really interesting to see, the different culture that sports brings, and the community that it can build, and moreover, the character that I think it can build within. And that's something that I was just always really passionate about, and that I really love sharing and instilling in other people, as I get older and they ask me about my sporting career and so on. And that's something I love sharing, the story and the passion of it. Tune with their bodies and being active and out there, and getting their mindsets in place, and changing like the traditional systems that don't even really make sense anymore for many things, sports, like education and everything. And it's like you want to leave your mark, like you're going to leave your mark with these videos, which is absolutely fantastic, and you can go back and be like, wow, it's so funny, at that point in time this was happening in the world and it was a big deal, and we look back on it, it's not a big deal anymore. And it's like, me too, I want to leave my mark, and I think I'm still finding a way I want to leave it, but like, I want people to be passionate about sport and participating in sport and being the best they possibly can, because that feeling of accomplishment for me is like, the best feeling in the world. And if they can get that feeling, and if they can feel confident doing something like that, then, all the power to you, and I'll help you as much as I can. And then, getting like the children and the younger generation growing up into this world that's going to be absolutely sustainable. I love nature, I love, being outside, I love participating in sport, being active, and the mind, all of that encompasses like this circle of well-being that, in my mind, maybe it gets back into my farming days, but creating sustainability for our earth, because I think we can all sit here and realize that we're slowly killing our earth, right? And I don't want my children's children or something like that to look and be like, wow, those guys were pretty stupid, right? So like, I think we have the power and the minds to do it. It's just a matter of, everyone really honing in on what they're passionate about and creating that change, because in my mind, I don't really think everyone wants to do bad to this world. I think everyone's out, to leave their mark and to do good. It's just getting people the mindset and the tools that they can use to actually find, deep down inside what they want to do to actually leave their mark in the world. And I'm here to, help with that for sure, without a doubt. So, you can look at like the top names in sport worldwide, and like a great Canadian figure, or like, I don't know, like Michael Jordan, right? And so many people right now compare like Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Lionel Messi in soccer and Cristiano Ronaldo. And if you look at them, they have like two totally different body types, right? And I think people really overanalyze too much, because it's like, like I said before, it's like I did my DNA test just to see like where my heritage was from and so on, and it came back telling me like I had such a mixture of fast twitch and slow twitch muscles, right? And I wouldn't be classified as a elite athlete. And I laughed at that so hard, because I'm like, how can this test, tell me that? And meanwhile, I was off playing, professional soccer for many years. And I sat down and I actually pondered that for a couple days before I even told anyone about it, because I was like, is it the mind that gets me to where I need to go, or was I born with this, And I think there are athletes who, come out of the womb and they just like have those natural skills, and given the right tools on their way, they're good to go, right? They're just natural athletes. They have the natural body. They move well. and so on. But I can really sit down and think like my societal, my environmental, my social influence had so much to do with it as a child. My uncle taking me to sporting games, watching my parents play sports their whole lives, trying multiple sports. I truly don't believe that these professional hockey players come from doing hockey camps all year round. I think it's so important to train your body and your mind differently every time. So if you do hockey in the winter, go play soccer in the summer. I never ever as a child played soccer year round. That was just a summer sport. And in the winter, I was doing, like basketball and volleyball and some indoor rugby and things like that. Like I was moving, and it makes you view the sport in a very smart way, because you can take a skill and a tactic that you learn from, another sport and really apply it into something else and into your master sport, you could call it, or what you like best. And it makes you become a better athlete. And now you can kind of see, like, there's these professional hockey players warming up like with a soccer ball, right? Just to like get their minds turned on. So it's funny, it's like, what came first, chicken or egg? Like, is it your body that you need to hone in on to perform, or is it your mind? And I'm not trying to be super liberal, but I really think it's a combination of the two. When how you're shaped as a kid with your influences, super important, and what you do with it as a kid is even more important. There's many times where I think I could have thrown in the towel, and there's many times I can remember being frustrated, and I've been cut from sports teams, and I've been cut from some high-level soccer teams, but I think that just wasn't the right time, because my mind wasn't ready to actually take that on. So I was given this opportunity physically, and I thought I performed well. But obviously that coach knew I wasn't ready, which, looking back was okay, but at the time, like, super devastating and embarrassing, and your pride goes down the toilet, right? So it really comes down to, like, how do you take that, and what do you do with it, and how do you deal with it? Because inevitably you're going to have a low in your sporting career, and you're probably not going to have one low, you're probably going to have many. And what you do with that at that time is going to make you that better athlete in the end. So given the skills as a kid, and refining the skills, but then at some point it really morphs into like what you do with the mindset and what you do with your outcome and where you want to go. At that point, it's the mind over the body, in my opinion. I'm laughing so hard because it's like, the Eminem song, palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, there's mom and sweaty, mom's spaghetti. I could rap that whole song. I'm not a rapper, but I really thought, like, at some point I connected with, I remember I used to play sport maybe more like angrily before I got more calm and into like a free flow of my athletic career. So I'd always just like pump up with that song. And way back in the day, I had a Discman. So you had to like hold the Discman like flat, because if you turned it, it would skip or stop working. So I remember like walking with it, thinking I was so cool and had so much, swagger. And I like had these huge headphones on, and you're just like holding your Discman so carefully that you can't even like turn it. So I thought that's kind of funny. It made me laugh when you asked about music. But my friends were really cool, actually. They'd support me by making me CDs, and I still have the book of CDs sitting in my car. So it was just like these mixed songs. Like it went from like, Ain't No Mountain High Enough was always like a really awesome song to me, and then it went into like Eminem. So like there's no really like big trend of music. It was just kind of like everything. I think Missy Elliott was on there at some point, and we just like got down to it. So the songs kind of came as like a team thing. Like whatever song was kind of popular that year would come on. But I remember Ain't No Mountain High Enough like really would be inspiring, because I was always kind of like it got me kind of in the right mindset and the right mood, and it was just an upbeat song, and I love it. And I got to a point in my career where I kind of stopped listening to music to pump me up, because I noticed that it was more of like an external tool that I was using, and I thought, hey, could I maybe not use my internal thoughts and my internal power to get me pumped up for the game, because I don't have music when I'm in, a bad place in the game. So how am I gonna, get focus minus music? And I really went through a phase where I had zero music actually. And I had, nothing on there, but, at the very end of my soccer career, I met my fiance, and he's super into music and has so much music on his computer. And I remember being like, here's my iPod, can you just put some stuff on it? Because I had gotten rid of music, so I was so not in tune with what was popular and what was happening. And I remember going on this big backpacking traveling trip to kind of find myself when my career was over, and listening to all of his music, and it just kind of opened my eyes again to kind of a new life and a new style of music. So yeah, I think if I were to pick one song, I'm gonna pick two because I can't decide, but it's definitely Ain't No Mountain High Enough and Eminem, I think Lose Yourself. Those are my two game time songs for sure. Never gets old. So advice wise, to anybody worldwide, and I think it's going to be to anyone of any age. It can be young, it can be old, and I'm going to say, find a way to leave your mark on this world. And I mean, if you want to leave a negative mark, up to you, but I really hone into what your passion is and figure it out. And then once you find your passion, digging into it even more. And once you release yourself to this passion, you're just going to absolutely grow as a person and expand and keep going. And really what it comes down to is, the day you absolutely part from this earth, how do you want people to remember you? So figure out a way to leave your mark and to make a positive impact on the world.